Alright, so exercise 3.41 has to do with endangered manatees. We previously done this problem before. We did exercise 3.6 in class before, in which we actually talked about how the power group registrations are the explanatory variable and the response variable is the manatees killed. Actually, let me go ahead and pull that over here. So we had already done that for A, and then B we made a scatter plot, and I had you guys sketch that out, and we talked in depth about that already. But here's the information I'm entering in my calculator. Again, this is X, this is Y. It does continue on over here. In order to save time, I've already entered this information into the calculator. So A asks you to make a scatter plot of that same data again, and then it asks you in B to overlay the least squares regression line onto your scatter plot. So this is what it should look like, but let me show you guys the steps real quick. So in list 1 I have the explanatory variable, which is the power boat registrations, and then this is the number of manatees killed. And then if you want to go to stat plot, you want to make sure you have only one on so you have no issues. So I have list 1 and list 2, and then if you want the least squares regression line to appear, I would go to stat, calc, 8 is linear regression, and if you want to store the equation, you have to enter it yourself here. So I would go to vars, yvars, function, and then it doesn't matter which one you pick as long as you have it active. I'm picking the first one. And then basically you go to zoom and then stat, and it should appear like this. Now if you're ever asked to draw the least squares regression line onto your paper, you can kind of eyeball it from the graph, and you can actually hit trace, and you can figure out where certain things are. So for example, the X value here is 447. My Y value, which is, if I draw a line this way, it's about 13, so this is a little bit lower than 13. So I don't know, that's like 10 or 9 right there. Again, you can kind of eyeball it. Now, least squares regression line is actually going to be very important. So I'm going to go back to stat, calc, and 8. So A and B here are going to be used at some point later. So go back to here. This is how I'd write the least squares regression line for B. Now, C asks you to predict the number of manatees that will be killed in a year if you have 716,000 power boats registered. So there's two ways of doing this. There's a calculator way, and there's doing it by hand. If you were to do it by hand, all you have to do is switch X with 716, and you would get something like this. When we're actually talking about something concrete, something physical, you do want to round. So this right here, I would round to 48 manatees because that's going to be like the closest. So 48 manatee deaths would be predicted by the least squares regression. If you want to do this on the calculator, you can do is go to vars, yvars, function, and then I have mine entered as the first one, so I'm going to use that. And then this will plug it in for me. As you can see, I basically get the same number. Alright, so that's C. Let's go on to the next one. So D is asking you to add 4 more to your data. So previously the data had stopped at 1990, and now it's including 4 more years. So you'd have to actually enter this into the calculator if you want to, you want to add this to your scatter plot, so you also want to add it to your sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and add these in. Oops. By the way, it's actually faster to go up instead of down. And then I do want to enter these as well. So we got 53, 38, 35, and 49. And then I can just go back here again. And now I added the points. There's 2 of them are up here, and then there's 2 down here. If I were to sketch this out, let's see, this would be my original, and then this is mine with the line on it, and then these are the extra 4 points here. Now, in part D, it also mentions, you know, after you add these parts, it says Florida took stronger measures to protect manatees during these years. Do you see any evidence that these measures succeeded? So, visually, these 4 points got added. Visually, I would say, you know, these 2 years seem pretty successful. This is actually the first year. This is, you know, 1991. This is 94. So in between there was some success, but as you can see, the numbers started increasing again. So visually, I would have to say no. I don't think those measures did anything for the manatees, and you know, it's basically the same thing that happened before. And actually, hold on, I do have the answer typed up for you guys here. And this is actually E. Whoops. So okay, so going on to E, it says, so you use the least squares regression to predict the number of manatees that will be killed in the year, and then we actually have these 3 numbers right here that are 716 registrations. So it asks you right here to compare the mean of those 3 years to your prediction in part C. So going back over here, if you add these together, you get 126. You divide those by 3, you get 42. Now if we go back and compare that to the answer that we got previously, that answer was 48. So if you actually calculate it, they actually did go down. So the predicted was 48, and the average actually for those next 3 years, or not next 3 years, but well, actually, yeah, the next 3 years that had 716 actually was lower. So you can say with confidence that no, actually those measures did help, and they did in fact reduce the number of deaths of manatees.